Welcome and hello. Welcome to the Go Plan video library that includes Greenleaf Financial Fitness Series and other financial professional series involved with personal financial wellness. This series, along with other videos, will be posted on our Go Plan YouTube channel, websites, and other social media outlets. My name is Jim Hiles, and as your host, I think it's important to highlight what financial wellness is and how tools like Go Plan 101 can help Americans achieve their goals and wishes. So, what is financial wellness? It is defined as the overall financial health of an individual. What it does for you is probably most important. It helps you increase understanding all things related to money. It can also help decrease stress, help you make better decisions, and perhaps most importantly, keep you on track as things change in the future. What's Go Plan 101? Well, Go Plan 101 combines web technology and educational content with behavioral change solutions, free software, and a huge resource center full of focused responses. Translation? Simple. Go Plan 101 is a cool site that helps people deal with their money issues so they can do what they want to do. And you also have the capability on our site to talk to a coach or go right to the resource. At the end of the day, financial wellness is only as good as the actions taken. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
Good afternoon and welcome to the latest installment of the Greenleaf Financial Fitness Series, 20 minutes to a healthier, wealthier you. Today we'll be talking about saving for college. As always, we like to introduce the team briefly before we start these. So up here you're going to see in a minute Jamie Greenleaf. Jamie not with us today, but very instrumental in putting these together. Jamie is a partner and advisor with Cafaro Greenleaf. Here with me today, Jim Hiles. Jim is the managing partner with First Capital Advisors Group, and I am Jim D., senior financial advisor with Greenleaf Financial. So we were going to talk today about the 4 pillars of college education planning, and you see them up here. So basically, we're going to start with school selection. And we'll talk a little bit about the child's contribution or the kid's contribution and how we think that might work. We're going to go into the college savings options, which you may have heard before. And we're also going to talk about current earnings and how to budget and how that financial, how college budgeting might fit into your finances. Jim Hiles.
Yes, sir.
Does it even pay to have a higher education these days?
Well, according to this, it does, and I think it depends on who you ask sometimes, but I don't think there's any doubt here if you look at the numbers that if you look at just these 3 main categories of high school graduate, bachelor degree, and professional degree, that when you look at the whole, on average, there's no doubt, history has been proven out that the getting a college bachelor degree and then going on to a professional degree increases the percentage that you're going to get for higher pay. So it does make sense to pay for a higher college when you look at it from that perspective. We're going to bring up some different angles today in terms of how we think that might work, how to pay for it, and maybe even talk a little bit about how to reduce the cost of college.
Now let's talk about the other thing that always comes up when we talk about college is debt and the burden debt has.
Well, I mean, this is a problem because it's like anything else. When you have capability of providing people to borrow to buy things, a couple things happen. You make it easy for them to buy. There's more opportunity for demand in the marketplace. The price of colleges goes up because there's more credit, and people use the credit. And what the problem is we got $1.4 trillion of student debt out there. The average debt at graduation for a student is about 40 grand. For the parent, which could be in addition to the student, is about $32,000 or $33,000. So people are going into debt, and this is why we think you must pay attention to how to properly fund for college and reassess the traditional way of looking at even selecting a college.
Yeah, and we've talked about this too, because sometimes that parent debt there might be some invisible parent debt there too, right? Because that's parent debt specifically for college, but doesn't include home equities, a mortgage that a parent might have taken out. So it's probably worse than it looks on that slide, right?
Yeah.
So one thing we don't really hear much about in our business, the business of investing and saving for college, is the value. So we thought we would talk a little bit about the price versus value comparison here because we think it's important. I read a good piece a while back about a dad who was working with an advisor. He had a daughter who had gotten a full scholarship to Rutgers, the state university here in beautiful New Jersey. But her dream school was NYU. And even after the aid from NYU, they were still going to wind up paying about $36,000. And in the article, the advisor advised the client that was not a rational decision to let her go to her dream school, right? Jim, you had another story also.
I think, well, here's what they're finding. The cost of college is anywhere from, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 to $70 or even higher.
Sure.
And just because you pay more for college, it's not necessarily translating into a higher level of income because you paid more for the higher college.
Right.
It doesn't always work out that way. So you kind of should step back and assess what kind of value you're getting for the money you're spending for college. And it isn't necessarily always going with what everyone thinks the top school is. Most of the top schools, I think 568 of the top schools don't even have academic scholarships. So that creates a little bit of a problem. For example, we have a client whose child applied to MIT and wanted to go to MIT, and the cost of MIT at the time was about $64,000. Case Western Reserve, which is in the same conference, the little football conference, and,
right.
and from a intellectual standpoint, a very good school. They wanted to be an engineering graduate, and Case Western's cost was $59,000. But Case Western also had a $20,000 a year scholarship that they were able to provide. So at the end of the day, going to Case Western and maybe settling, if you will,
right.
in your mind, a really small amount is about a $95,000 swing in college costs for that one student. So challenge yourself in terms of the value that you're getting. Don't just get married to a name.
Right. And I think the conclusion of the article that I read was that you need to start thinking of that difference. If you're looking at the dream school and you're willing to pay an extra $25,000 or $35,000 more as consumption spending, not as an investment, because of what you just said. It's not necessarily going to equate to higher returns in terms of income, and you don't always get what you pay for.
Right. This is a great option for people, I think, to consider. I really do think that the more and more that having sent 2 kids to college and paid some ungodly amounts myself, the more and more I think about what they actually do in college, particularly in the first couple of years, is a little bit nutty. And so one of the considerations that I think makes a lot of economic sense and may make practical sense is a community college option. At least take those first 2 years at community college, do whatever you can to save money if you're looking for opportunities to cut costs somewhere, and then go to a 4-year college and get the next 2 years at that 4-year college. And you have a significant savings opportunity. You're graduating from the same place
Sure.
without paying for it.
Right. The degree has the same name on it, whether you went for 2 or 4, right?
And at the end of the day, when they say where you graduated from, you're not going to say, oh, I went to community college first. And then
Right.
You're going to say I graduated from XYZ. And that's all they care about. Anyway, at the end of the day, no one's going back here and looking at your SAT scores or your GPA from colleges anyway. You're trying to get a job. That's what we're trying to do
That's
here.
right.
Besides
Right.
today.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
That's not always what the kids are thinking, right?
Let's talk about that. So let's talk about how, we talk about cost of college going up and so on and so forth. How about trying to figure out ways to cut the cost of college? How about that? Well, college is on sale. And I think Jim said this in a prior webinar, it's a sticker price, like a car. Like you can go in and say, that's the sticker price, but you can appeal to their offer and say, you know what, it's $65,000, I'll give you $45,000.
Right, and then especially when you get when you have multiple offers to talk about with those schools, right?
Yeah, you might as well take one against the other because it has a lot to do with the money that's coming out of your pocket. And after all, we're talking about 17, 18-year-old kids. I mean, do we really even know what they're going to do at this point?
Sure.
I don't think so. So think about what you're doing in terms of just working the system. That's how it should be worked. The other thing to do is, what about grad school? What about medical school? What about law school? Just because you're spending all your money on getting into a college, you could have all that money gone, and you could have spread it out over actually paying for that and a grad school. So that's another thing to consider. Another thing we often see is the firstborn syndrome, and this is where our first one to go to college, we've saved money, and we're using all of our savings to get the kid to the best school, and we've got the other 3 kids we're looking at thinking, okay.
Right. Dream school for number one and community college for the next three. Right?
So it sounds funny, but it's true, and it does happen. So you have to kind of think through how that's going to work out. Maybe fair and equal aren't necessarily the same thing here, but you've got to give it some thought, because if you have other kids, then you want to think about how they're going to be funded. Here's an interesting one: SAT and ACT scores. Makes a difference. This is actually a very paraphrased version right off the University of Alabama website, basically saying if you have an ACT score of 27, they will provide a merit scholarship of $3,500 per year. If you can get that up, even as high as a 32, $26,950 a year.
I was amazed when you showed me that.
So SAT prep courses, ACT prep courses make the investment. That is a huge. If you think about the investment on that, if the course costs you $1,000, spend it, because you should, if you can get a couple of extra notches on your score, really kind of see a rate of return on your investment here. All right. So on to some other things. Now these fall under the idea of tax planning. So you can save money by not paying taxes because of the way you're handling the money, and use those savings to the benefit of the kids. Like, for example, this doesn't apply to everybody, but let's say you have a appreciated stock that you own. Well, if you give it to the kids and have them sell it, potentially they're going to pay taxes at their bracket. In the kids' brackets, you could potentially not pay tax on up to $2,100 worth of gains in 2018. Well, that's better than you paying taxes on it under your tax bracket. So think about shifting assets and maybe doing something like this. You can also, if you have the opportunity where you are, if you have a side gig, or maybe your spouse has a job where they have control over how money gets spent, or they own their own company, or they're professional, you can pay your kids. And if you pay your kids right now, depending on how your tax situation lays out, they can actually qualify for the new standard deduction, which is now up to $12,000. So if you can get them to qualify for their own standard deduction of $12,000, you can save another $4,000 a year in your income taxes. And the last bit here, just to sort of close out this section, ask your employer. Ask your employer if they offer, or if they're willing to offer, some sort of tuition assistance program. There's something called a Section 127 plan. There's also something called a Section 132 fringe benefit plan. These are plans which basically provide tax advantages to people who use money that they're savings for a child, or for the benefit of even themselves or their family, for some sort of tuition. So here are some tax planning things to look into. Consider these if you got the opportunities.
Right. All ideas, and obviously all need to be considered with the tax advisor.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
So let's look at the other one of the pillars here, which is a child's contribution. And there are some ways that a child can contribute monetarily, and there are also some ways that a child can contribute through behavior. Right. So it's not always just a monetary contribution that the child makes. It could be things like maintaining a minimum GPA, which we see down the list there. But obviously, a child's contribution can consist of scholarship.
Look at this one. Go after every scholarship. You
right.
Look them up. Go on the websites. Go after any and every scholarship you can think of. It's the cost of time in filling out a form. Go after everything you get your hands on.
Right. There are local $500 scholarships that nobody applies for. The guidance office at your high school knows all about them.
Yep.
Some kids, I've heard many times, one kid applied, or no kids applied for some of them. Right. You're leaving, the cost of books for a semester on the table,
sure.
Right?
Why not?
Right. We all know you and I know how much those books can be.
So the other thing to do is, sometimes the child should take out the loan, not the parent. So if able, they need to think about what that means to them. It's not unusual, and you hear stories, and I don't know about you, but I worked summer jobs.
Yeah.
I contributed not necessarily to my tuition for me, because I was fortunate, but anything I spent during the course of the year, that's what that was, right? Well, there's no reason you can have to stop there. If the child has to contribute, then the child has to contribute. Let's put the money that they're doing during the summer and put it toward the college tuition. And frankly, I know a lot of people, including myself, who work during college and help pay for tuition by working through college. Hey, you know what? Maybe it takes you 5 years. At the end of the day, that 1 year is not going to make any difference. you got through college, you got the diploma, you're out there, you're worth more now, and you worked your way through college, and that's actually probably viewed as a positive.
And sure, absolutely. And part of the working during college would include work-study programs, which you just have to check a box when you're doing your financial planning documents. You have to tell them that you're willing to accept a work-study job if it's available. That money is paid for not by the college, but by the federal government. So that's another way for a kid to contribute.
Yeah, these are adult conversations to have with kids, and we all have dealt with teenagers.
They don't always work.
So, but the bottom line is, sometimes I've seen it anyway. Somehow the light comes on.
It sinks in a little at a time, right?
Does. Or all of a sudden in one big flash. I don't know, but the other thing that the child can help do is help themselves by chasing internships. The game has changed. For those of you who have gone through this, it's all about getting an internship, because the internship is essentially the hiring process. It started early. And if you can find internships, they're extremely valuable in job placement in today's marketplace. And I think that's one of the other things that's going to take work for the child to do. They need to start thinking about their network and their group that they're going to go after, or their interests, so they can focus on a group to go after. So that's something that's going to be basically put in the child's lap.
Definitely an important pillar there. So let's talk. We didn't think we'd be complete if we didn't mention these two things, the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Basically, let's just suffice to say there's a lot of data there, but the FAFSA everyone should do. That's the federal methodology. That's what determines what kind of federal financial aid you're eligible for and your student is eligible for. And the CSS profile, more and more schools, about 400 now, are insisting on the CSS profile in addition to the FAFSA to determine financial aid. Understand your EFC, your expected family contribution is what that stands for. And basically here, again, there's an example, but what you'll see is that income plays a much larger role when it comes to how much aid a kid gets versus assets. So the example here is if you earn $150,000 in income and you have $200,000 worth of savings, your estimated EFC is about $40,000. Someone making more money, obviously that EFC goes up, but you get the picture. So let's talk about 529 plans, and these of the pillars. This is one of our college saving options. We'll start with 529s because they're really the most popular. As a matter of fact, we see about 42% of parents have 529 plans, and the benefits are right here as we see them: tax-free investing and so it's tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals for qualified higher education. The account owner controls the account for the life of the account, which is different than what we'll see next. There are no income limits on contributions or age restrictions on beneficiaries. A parent can use it. Literally your mom or dad could use it. There are high contribution maximums, as much as $400,000 or more per beneficiary, if you have that kind of money available to do so. It has a low impact on financial aid eligibility because the account owner is in control, as we said. The assets are removed from your taxable estate, and it also, you can use tax-free gifts of up to $150,000 per year in a single year. So Jim, why don't you take this, talk a little bit about why they're preferred.
Well, yeah, I think it's as simple as the slide said. When you have 529, it doesn't have the same impact on your eligibility for financial aid. So if you put money in here, then this is going to actually help you in your formula. Okay, these are custodial accounts. You may have heard the term UCMA, and all these fun things. Essentially, these are custodial accounts. You go to the bank and say, I want to open an account for my child. And they say, you need a custodial account, and you're the custodian. But the problem with this is age 18 or 21, the kid gets money. In some situations, that's good. Some situations may not be good. You have to be careful about where the earnings are going to be taxed. They could be taxed at the child's rate, which is better than what most are, but some can be trust or estate tax rates. The funds have to be used for the child, but they can be used for really anything. So it's not necessarily a college thing.
Right.
It does have a high impact on financial aid eligibility, and the assets are not removed from the estate. Essentially, the parents still control and own the assets at that point. So not as good as a 529 when you're looking at it from educational funding.
Right, for education, and these are less popular for that now because of 529s, right? So now let's talk about retirement savings and why it should be off limits. Right? From what you see here, every dollar that's withdrawn from a retirement account to pay for college or higher education can mean several dollars down the road in your retirement savings balances. So here, just assuming certain things, basically a 20-year time horizon at a 6% rate of return, $25,000 withdrawn from a retirement account can result in over $80,000 less being available for retirement. And obviously that's a problem because we already have a retirement funding shortage in our country.
Yeah, so if you take money out now to pay for college, you're taking money away from your future.
Right, exactly.
All that money you're going to use 20 years from now is gone. So you're going to take a hit on that. On this one, it's another potential issue here is when you take money out of retirement plans, it's not free.
Right, not always.
You put money in pre-tax in most situations. That's what most 401ks do, for example.
Sure.
You might have to pay taxes on it. And you may even have to pay a penalty tax in addition if you're under age 15 and a half. So that doesn't sound very fun when you want to get money out of a retirement plan.
Right, definitely not. Not option 1 shouldn't be option 10 as far as we're concerned, right?
The other thing, by the way, just to close out that, you can borrow from your retirement plan. Typically, a 401k plan offers the option to borrow. We'd probably recommend against that for all the reasons we talked about.
For the same
today.
reasons, yep.
Exactly. We do know that retirement plan assets, if you were to draw them down, kind of don't make sense from a financial aid standpoint because 0% of the financial assets, retirement assets, are considered in the federal financial aid formula, whereas 50% of the withdrawals for college may count against that aid formula. So keep it in the retirement plan.
Right. Lots of reasons here. I think we got another slide to talk about.
You can't borrow for retirement. In other words, you can borrow for education, but when you get to be 65 years old and go to the bank and say, I need $1 million for my retirement, they're not going to give it to you. That's just not going to happen. So use the opportunity for loans to the extent that you need it because you simply just can't borrow for your retirement in the future. We also know that retirement plans, usually 401ks, are also your best tax break today. So why would you want to not fully fund it and reduce your taxes as much as you can today? That's something you want to do anyway. Also, retirement plans are protected from in asset protection ways. 529 plans are not as asset protected as retirement plans. So if you want to protect your assets for the future from claims of creditors, malpractice, divorce, retirement plans are better. And the last thing is, there's a great variability in the cost of college. There's no variability in the cost of retirement, or very little. If I need a certain set number of dollars to live for the rest of my life, I'm not going to take a 50% cut because I want to.
Right.
Whereas if I have to go to college longer or a lower school for tuition, well, then so be it. I'll get through it. But you really can't do that in retirement.
Right. So we've come full circle to what we started with, right? It's college choice and value. So that kind of closes the circle there, right. As far as picking your school, making sure, and this is the reason why and the impact it has long term on the parent.
So we covered a lot of ground, and let's just summarize. It's time to put this information to work. We live in a wonderful and a free country, but it's up to us to take responsibility and move forward, particularly on our personal financial wellness. So let's take some action here. Let's go and explore this financial stuff. Take a buddy with you if you need to. Have some fun. Learn a little or learn a lot about what you can do financially. These videos and websites, I hope you enjoy. I think they're great. But if you're like me, sometimes you just want someone to talk it out with. So seek out coaching from our site from professionals who've been vetted to provide you with complimentary initial consultations as being part of the Go Plan 101 experience. If you've not started your planning, or even if you have, use today's video to explore the area of concentration. Make sure you understand how it impacts you. My favorite quote is, life doesn't go in a straight line. You need to stay on top of it. So consider subscribing to our newsletter or our YouTube channel. Please reach out to me if you want more help or have questions. And lastly, thank you for listening. Now, go plan and go attain your financial wellness goals. Jim Hiles signing off for today. Take care.